Good morning, Kim Wilson. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us. For just a moment before officially starting, but I am so glad you are here. I see that you have been traveling and enjoying life, and I'm so happy to see that. I hope that you will click share and tag someone to join us in our Passion Friday discussion. I think it will be a great discussion. I'm biased, but I think it'll be a great discussion. And I hope that you can hear me. Let me make sure I can be heard. I hope that you will click share. Okay, cool. No feedback either. What a glorious day. Wherever you are, whether you are on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitch TV, YouTube events, please click share and tag someone to join us and drop in the comments where you are around the world and what the temperature is like. It's in the 70s here, and I'm very excited. Okay, I see Jonathan Williams has joined us as well. Thank you so much. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us. I don't think my counter is showing me. So if you don't comment, it'll be hard for me to track because I'm going live via Zoom today. A little different than I might normally do it, but hey, here we go. All right, and it is 12 o'clock, and good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending upon where you are around the world. I am Marcus Holmes, the HR Passion Guy, and I'm bringing you another installment of Passion Fridays. Patricia Ames is in Las Vegas, and it's 100 degrees. Oh my, Patricia. I think I'd have to be in an air-conditioned something somewhere. Here in Detroit, it's in the 70s, and I love 70s weather. So I'm a 70s baby, so I think I'm all things 70. Click share, Patricia, so others in your circle of influence can join us in what I believe will be a great discussion. And those of you that are on LinkedIn or Facebook or the Love and Stuff page or Marcus R. Holmes page or Twitch TV or YouTube events, do the same as I've asked Patricia to do. Click share. Tag 5 of your closest Facebook friends or LinkedIn connection or Twitch or YouTube followers, 5 of those within your circle of influence that makes discussions emboldened and alive, and join them, ask them rather to join us in a wonderful conversation. Aziz Abazi is in Georgia. Thank you so much. And what is the temperature like there, Aziz, in Georgia from LinkedIn? What's the temperature like? All right. Let's see. I gotta make sure the volume is down on all of these. I am on a different device, always testing different things. And so I wanted to just, let me make sure my guest is close to arriving. All right, let's see what we can do to help him. All right, fantastic. Okay, click share and tag someone to join us in this discussion, and drop in your comments where you are around the world. So there are folks from Georgia, Las Vegas, of course, Michigan, Detroit, Canton, I believe, other areas. Thank you so much for joining us. Click, share, and tag someone to join us in the conversation. All right, just giving some last minute tips to our guest. And I want to, when we hear the word police in this day and time, we're often thinking of, and you fill in the blank for me, drop in the comments when I say the word police. And I'm not shouting it, but if you heard police on the street, you might freeze, right? But when you hear the word police, what comes to mind? Drop in the comments when you hear the word police. I'll give you a second to do that on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitch TV, on YouTube events. Jacob Moore has joined us. When you hear that word, what do you think when you hear that word? Well, my default is not necessarily police brutality or police reform or defund the police, because I know that there are men and women who serve in excellence in public service. And I'm bringing one live with me now to join us. who was the first African American police officer to join the Livonia force. And the Livonia force here in Michigan, just to give a little bit of context, Livonia is a western suburb of Detroit. Some people say northwestern, but it's northwestern Wayne County, but it's western suburb of Detroit that is predominantly Caucasian or white. And last stat that I checked, it was 4.3%, a little bit less than that, of African Americans in the entire city of Livonia, to give you some context. And so here we have with us Tyrone Pickens, who is now retired from service for Livonia, but we wanted to have him on to talk about policing, what his passion was during that time around policing, and what that time was like. So welcome, Tyrone. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for asking me to do this. I appreciate it.
I'm very excited to have you. As when I first met you and learned that you were the first African American, I don't know if you remember that, I was like, wow, I think that speaks volumes. And so I want to go back. Tell us a little bit about Tyrone. Where are you from? And when you were a young man, a little boy, did you have a dream of being a police officer? What were your thoughts then? Can you take us back there?
Sure. I'm from Detroit. I grew up on the West Side. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Yes.
Grew up on the West Side, Mumford High School.
Okay.
My initial dream was not to be a police officer. I just really didn't think that would ever be a thing. But I grew up with a lot of people in my life, a lot of role models who were policemen.
Mm.
And, once I graduated high school in '83, I, bounced around from job to job, bagging groceries, delivering pizzas. I actually worked in a construction company for a while. I hung on just a lot of different odd jobs that I did after high school, fast food restaurants. And the opportunity to become a Detroit police officer arose, and I jumped on it. Thought it would be a great opportunity to do something fun, something different.
Okay.
Like I said, I had a lot of people in my life who were police officers, and so I kind of thought it would be a interesting job. And then Detroit actually started laying off at that time. I was going through the process, and they started laying off, and actually had a hiring freeze, to be exact. They stopped hiring. So I just kind of bounced around in different departments: Warren, MSP, State Police, Livonia, and ended up getting hired as a police cadet with Livonia, and just took the opportunity, went to school there. They paid for education at the time, got a degree in criminal justice, and just kind of went from there and just stayed my career there for 25 years.
Now, I want to go back because you were on the West Side. Yes, for West Side, for those of you that are watching around the world, I want to give you context. It's the best side, but West Side of Detroit. And can you remember any of the names of those police officers, and what was your impression of them? What mark did they leave on you about being a police officer?
Well, actually, they're both passed away now. I know both their names. One was my next door neighbor, Sylvester Chapman. He's actually was one of the guys who worked hand in hand with Chief Hart way back in the day.
Yeah.
And the other one was Michael Bryant. He was another officer who lived down the street. And what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
And what was the impression that they made upon you about being police officer? What about that do you remember the impression it had on you?
I just know they were both really good men. They were both good role models. They both had a lot to do with raising me, because back then the whole block raised you. It wasn't just your mom and dad. Yeah. So they were very positive and encouraging me when they learned I was going that route, and just giving me good advice on how to handle it, especially when they learned I was going into Livonia. I got good advice as far as how to handle that.
Got it. And so, and I want to hear a little bit about that advice too, but just to double back, you started the recruitment process for Detroit. Did you ever become a police officer? You were in training?
Well, recruiting is basically just trying to, it's part of the hiring process. They had in Detroit, they have recruiters.
Mhm.
So what they do is that you go through the process of the background check, and they stay in touch with you while you go through the process. And
Mhm.
what happened was, before I even got to the hiring part of getting hired, Coleman Young at the time uh, instituted a hiring freeze,
Gotcha.
so they hired no more employees. So they shut it down for a while.
Gotcha.
So that happened. That's what happened there.
Yeah, I was trying to just clarify that because I was going to ask you to compare the cultures. But when you got hired at Livonia, because you mentioned you bounced around. When you say bounced around, you applied to different places or you worked at different places before Livonia?
I just applied at different places. I
Gotcha.
applied to the other departments, and Livonia just came through. Pretty much that came through before the other places came through. So I just went with the sure thing.
Got it.
I could have went with the state police, but as you may or may not know, with the state police, what they do is, once you get hired as a state trooper, they purposely bounce you outside of your where you live. So, because the state, obviously it's a big state, and they have posts all over. So
Mhm.
what they normally do is just because it's what they do, they send you away from where you live. So I could have been posted up in maybe Grand Rapids,
Gotcha.
Kalamazoo, somewhere away from home, which wouldn't have been a bad thing. But it's just more, you get your comfort zone when you get to stay home.
Got you. And so the Livonia police force was the the only culture that you experienced as a law enforcement officer. I mean, directly, correct?
Correct. It's only police job I've ever worked was with the LPD, Livonia. Yes.
And so once you were hired, did you know at that time that you were the first African American when you were hired?
Oh yeah, it was quite evident. I mean, there was a newspaper article in the newspaper at the time. The city hires first Black cadet. I still have the article. I wish I would have remembered to grab it. I could have maybe showed it to you. But yeah, it was definitely known that I was the first African American hired in the city.
Did that make you feel proud? Did that make you feel pressure? How did that make you feel being the first?
It was some pressure there, because everywhere you went within the department, everyone knew who you were. So, and I didn't know who anybody was, but they all knew who I was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So some were very welcoming and very nice and very encouraging, and some were just kind of standoffish and not. But yeah, it was definitely there was that contrast going on there. Some were there to hoping that I do well and try to help me and encourage me, and some were just kind of like, didn't want to really say anything to me at all.
And so how old were you at that time?
22.
22, and you're the first African American. There's pressure. Did you feel like you had to blaze the trail so the people behind you, was that ever in your mind that, okay, I'm the first African American and I need to, kind of present in a way that they understand African American people and police officers?
Yeah, I just didn't want to screw it up. I didn't want to come in and live up to any type of stereotypes or because I felt like if I failed, they would just go up. See, told you, I knew it. So I had that going on, but it was there's so much to concentrate on and so much to learn,
Mm-hmm.
so much to focus on. I really wanted to grasp the job, make sure that I liked it,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure I enjoyed it, because it's nothing worse than working at a job where you hate going to.
Yeah.
So I was really embracing the opportunity. I mean, like I said, they sent me to Schoolcraft College to get my associate's degree. In Livonia, you have to have an associate's degree to become a police officer.
Okay.
Some departments don't require that, some do. Livonia does.
Okay.
So they sent me to school. I went to school full time and I worked full time. So that was a lot on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a whole lot of time to feel sorry for myself or to feel nervous or scared. I was just trying to focus on what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm. And you said that they required an associate's degree. Do you think that in any way impacted some African Americans from applying?
Well, when you think about it, when we go to college as African American people, men especially, and women, we don't go to college to become police officers. we go to college to become engineers, doctors, lawyers, other type of professions, right? So I don't know if it really discouraged it, but I know it didn't really help with the influx of, because when I took the test, there weren't a lot of Black people even there to take the test to become a police officer. It was only maybe, I don't remember exactly, but I know it wasn't many, maybe one or two.
Yeah.
Hard to recall, but it wasn't a lot. It was mostly Caucasian people. But like I said, you have to have a criminal justice degree and or an associate's degree in criminal justice, or some type of law.
Got it. And so you mentioned earlier a little bit about you didn't want to live up to the stereotype. What do you think that the stereotypes were then? And do you think that they have changed about what people think about African Americans, men or women? Because you said you didn't want to live up to maybe what the stereotype might have been. What would you say that you thought the stereotype was then, and has that changed at all?
Well, being the first, you wonder if they felt some type of way, if I could actually do the job. It's a lot of pressure to be the only African American in an organization of that size. So a lot goes into that. So I was just wondering if they were feeling some type of ways if I could actually do it, if I could actually complete the task. Because there have been other African Americans that have come after me, and they didn't finish. They didn't get to the finish line. Some quit. We had one person, one gentleman, Irvin Johnson. He passed away, unfortunately, on duty. And then we had another guy, young guy, Officer Moore, John Moore. He went to he went to the federal level. And we had one that quit, young man that quit, another couple of one female that I remember who also resigned because of just the pressure and just not being able to make it, to stick it out. I know the one guy, he quit because he had some type of conflict with another officer. They got into a bit of a verbal confrontation, and he decided to quit. And then the female officer that resigned, she just decided to do something else. She just resigned. I'm not sure exactly why, but she resigned. So.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about that pressure and the culture a little bit more. We're talking to Tyrone Pickens, the first African-American police officer on the Livonia, Michigan police force, who is now retired. And we'll talk a little bit about what retirement looks like for him. So if you're watching us on LinkedIn Live, and there are some of you that are joining us there, thank you so much. On Facebook Live, on YouTube events, or Twitch TV, if you'll drop in the comments where you are around the world, what the temperature is like, and when you hear the word police, what comes to mind. Very interested in hearing your comments on that, and want to get Tyrone Pickens' impression of your comments relative to that, because the police have been in the media and mainstream media so much, and I think that there are many different perspectives and angles that we should include when we're talking about police. And I wanted to give you maybe a different one than you may regularly hear on Passion Fridays. So you talked about the pressure. Is the pressure, I want to ask this question, but I want you to tell me about the pressure. But is there a pressure for you did you feel a pressure to fit in? What is that police culture like? And how might that be different for an African-American man or woman?
I don't know if I would say I felt pressure to fit in.
Okay.
I felt the pressure to be able to just do the job. It's a lot. It's not. I mean, you go out there, and as a police officer, you answer your runs. You're dealing with the public. You're dealing with a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different situations, and there's a lot to remember. There could be things like orientation, learning the city, how to get from point A to point B. Just basically, all of your when you make an arrest, and are you making good arrests? Are you writing good tickets? Are you able to get along with your coworkers.
Mhm.
All of that stuff is wrapped into it,
Yeah.
So the pressure was there for that in that aspect.
Got you. And talk to me a little bit more about your first partner or getting along with your coworkers. What was that like in those first years getting into the police force?
The training program that I went through, I had some very, very good training officers who were very good to me. I mean, they treated me good. I learned a lot as far as like learning the city,
Mhm.
learning how to, make a traffic stop, learning how to talk to the citizens on an accident scene, how to write an accident report, how to write a report. So, I learned a whole lot about that and just how to conduct yourself as an officer. So the training officers that I had were very, very good to me. I can't really say I had anything negative in that light
Mhm.
during the training. Now I had one officer, I remember one time I had an officer, you know, talk to me, and maybe this is something he just did as a training officer, but um kind of talk in circles around me as if I wouldn't understand basic instructions.
Mm.
It's hard to explain exactly what I mean by that, but
Mhm.
and maybe that was just something he just did as a training officer with everyone. I don't know, but it
Mhm.
was almost as if I can comprehend regular English. I don't need you to explain things to me to the nth degree.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
not a big deal. Just little. That was one little thing that I can recall. But for the most part, everybody was pretty good. And I got through the training program, no problem. And then I got on my own, so it worked out.
And when you were on your own, does that mean you had a specific partner that you regularly patrolled with? When you say on your own, what do you mean?
And in a lot of the suburban departments, the officers, you probably see this a lot. A lot of the departments, suburban departments, anyway, the officers ride solo.
Okay.
It's rare that you have a partner. Sometimes you may get a partner if the manpower is really high,
Mhm.
but for the most part, especially these days, manpower isn't that high right now. There aren't a lot of officers to go around.
Mhm.
So a lot of times in the suburbs, the officers ride by themselves. So you're on your own. You're just riding by yourself.
Got it.
And I know in Detroit it's different because it's more of a urban area, more high crime, and they always partner up in Detroit.
Got it.
But in the suburbs, you ride by yourself.
Got it. And so, what was your interaction like with the citizens when you happened upon the first citizen in uniform, and that citizen was maybe Caucasian or some other race other than Black? What was that interaction like? Can you recall that?
Most times it was positive. It kind of, I kind of chalked that up to my personality. I just know how to talk to people. They had a few times where people were gave me a certain look, or if I had $1 for every time somebody said to me, I didn't know Livonia had any Black officers, I'd be super rich right now,
Mhm.
because that happened a lot, Black
Mhm.
and white.
Mhm.
But for the most part, it was a positive experience. I have a few negative experiences, but you're talking a 25-year career, so that's just bound to happen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with people giving me a hard time because I
Okay.
was African American.
And so, tell us about that. Congratulations on 25 years. You served your 25 years and retired. What was your pathway to those 25 years? Did you have different positions, different sections that you worked in? Walk us through some of your experience as a law enforcement professional.
Well, it all started as a police cadet. So with the first couple of years, I was just inside learning to work in the lockup, booking prisoners, taking care of prisoners, that kind of thing. Um, and working the desk on certain days, answering phones and dispatching cars to different calls for service.
Okay.
Once I completed my degree and got the associate's degree, then you go through the training program. And once you get through that, you have another 6 months of probation where you're on your own and they evaluate you. And then once you're through that, you're off probation and you're good to go.
Mhm.
So I did that. And once that was over, I did some surveillance work in a plainclothes unit, special operations unit. And from there, I ended up going to a narcotics unit where you work the drug crimes.
Mm.
handled that for about 4 years, and then back to the road to finish up my last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So tell me again, you spent the most of your time where?
Most of the time there, I spent working in patrol.
In patrol. Okay. All right. And did you ever have to discharge your weapon?
Fire my weapon? No, not at a person. I shot a dog once. It was a vicious animal complaint, and it was a Rottweiler.
Hmm.
But other than that, no, not at a person. I mean, I've actually had it out for felony stops or high risk traffic stops,
Mhm.
or maybe clearing a building for like an open door on an alarm where you're clearing a building. You got your gun out for that.
Mhm.
But as far as shooting at a suspect or a bad guy or shootout, nope. And that's the case with most officers. A lot of times you hear about these shootouts and these incidents. It's rare that an officer has to fire his weapon, but you know, they have incidents where weapons have been fired, and I've been there, but I didn't have to fire mine.
Got it. And when you say you had your weapon out for felony and high risk incidents, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm just interested to hear, you know, how do you determine that it's high risk, and how do you determine it's, you know, potential felony or something felonious or something?
For example, you may get we've gotten calls on, let's say a 7-Eleven, and this has happened. 7-Eleven gets robbed, okay? And let's say one of the officers comes up with the suspect vehicle. You get the call from the witness. Oh, it was a red Chevy pickup truck. So you find a red Chevy pickup truck going down Middle Belt or whatever, and then you go to pull it over, and let's say they don't pull over right away, and they maybe try and get away, and then you end up getting it stopped. Well, that's a high risk felony stop because this person just robbed a 7-Eleven. They could be armed.
Got it.
So then you want to have your gun out just in case they come out shooting or there is a gun in the car. Those are high risk stops. You know, bank robberies, even some domestic situations where the husband just left the scene of beating up his wife or whatever, and now you get him stopped, and maybe there's a bit of a chase, maybe there's a bit of a scuffle. You know, it's just every situation can be dynamic. It could be something as simple, like I said, as going to a bank alarm. You get those sometimes. You get silent bank alarms where the bank hits their silent alarm. So you show up and you kind of set up a perimeter and making sure the bank isn't being robbed. So you're gonna have your gun out and be ready. Barricaded gunmen, you get those sometimes where a person is suicidal, they're going through something, and they're got the house barricaded. They may have a hostage or two. And you may set up a perimeter and wait and call out a SWAT team and just be on the perimeter, and try to get a negotiator to talk them out. So when they come out, you're gonna have your gun out in case they come out with a gun, or you just kind of want to be at the ready position, if that makes sense.
It does, and thank you for clarifying. I wondered that how you would determine high risk necessarily. And so, would you say you had very many days where you thought, okay, I might not be coming home today, or probably not very many of those days?
You know, it's weird because you don't go into work thinking that you may not be coming home today. At least I didn't, but it was always a fact that you could go to work and that could be your last day. And it doesn't always have to be at the hands of a person who shot you. It could be a car accident. You know, I've been in a number of car accidents that could have went bad. It could be like the one officer I was telling you about that passed away. He had just wrestled with a patient who was mental. He was a mental patient, and there was a little bit of tussle. He got him subdued, got him handcuffed, and got him help that he needed. But that was a stressful situation. And after that happened, he was in his police car, and from that stress, he had a heart attack and passed away. And then there's also like I said, there is a situation where you could be shot, stabbed, you know. So, but going into the job, you just try and be careful. You know, I always say be careful. So you try and be careful, and you try and make smart decisions tactically on traffic stops. When you're going into a house to deal with a domestic, you want to be tactical and you want to be careful. You don't want to just be loosey goosey and just thinking nothing's going to happen. You always try to be tactical and careful. So, it's nothing that we tend to worry about or fear it, but it's just one of those things. Kind of goes with the job. It's the dangerous job. And it's dangers that you have to kind of just be careful.
Okay. I'm going to pivot away from this a little bit and talk a little bit more about Tyrone Pickens, the individual, though I'm coming back to find out if you ever had higher aspirations like police chief and whatever the ranking is within your organization. But I want people to get a chance to know a little bit more about Tyrone Pickens, the person. Thank you, Kim McNeely, for joining us on LinkedIn. I hope you will click share and tag others to join us. And those of you that are just joining us, I'm talking with Tyrone Pickens, who is the first African-American police officer for the Livonia, Michigan Police Force, in a predominantly white suburb here in the Detroit metro area, where there is approximately 4.3% of that population that's African American or Black. And so we're talking with him and learning some very interesting things about his professional life. And now I want to ask him a few things about Tyrone, because you're a dad. So at what point in this journey, you went to school while you were working, got your associates, got your bachelor's, I believe. Did you get your bachelor's?
No, just associates.
Just associates. And then at what point did you have your son? And tell us a little bit about him and what fatherhood and being a police officer has been like.
Well, it's been a journey. I can remember going to his kindergarten class for a show and tell. He wanted me to come talk to his kindergarten class to talk about being a police officer, and that was fun. That was interesting. Your son, they tend to look up to you and think highly of you because you're doing something good for the community. So it's not something I would aspire him to do. Not in this day and age.
Okay.
It's different now. But if he were to go that route, I wouldn't discourage it. I mean, I wouldn't talk him out of it. But so that's where I'm at on that.
Got it. And how old was he when, how old were you rather when he was born?
30.
30. Okay. So you've been policing for a while. And how old is he now?
25.
Okay. So in that span of time, you're saying it's not something you would recommend to him. What's different, recommend to him? What's different about, from your estimation, about policing today than it was back then?
Today, it's changed as far as the public perception of police departments and police officers. The perception is a lot different than it was back then. Back then, you had a little bit more cooperation from some of the public. You didn't have as much of the conflict between the for example, our George Floyd back in my day was Rodney King. Okay. So things were kind of the same, but they've changed a lot more because now people are more aware of a lot of the things that were going on behind the scenes back in the 90s and the 80s and 70s. A lot of things are more in the light now because everyone has a cell phone. A lot of the officers have body cameras, there's dash cameras. So a lot of things are more out in the open now than they were back then. Okay, I don't think that things that are happening now were happening back then, but now it's all on video for the world to see. So that's changed police work because now people see things differently now as opposed to back then. People see it differently now. It's this whole different scope of how people view the profession. And I think what needs to happen is we need to get back to the communication and the cooperation with the police in the community. The police need to be more in the community and be more part of the community. And everyone needs to come together as opposed to being us versus them. Because if you keep it that way, it's never going to work. Because without the public's confidence and their support, you can't have a police department. They're not going to be doing anything. They're not going to be able to do anything. They have to have a cohesive bond. And that's not what's happening in today's day and age.
And so you would suggest community policing. What does that look like from your estimation? I'm just curious.
Honestly, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I think police need to be more in the community. Just even if meant just going to the local community centers and just knocking on doors and just having conversations with the community, just having normal, not inquiring about, hey, where were you last night? You know, we had this happen over here. You know, where were you? Just come in and have a conversation. Just talk. Like, how was your night? And just get to know the community, get to know each other. I'm Officer Pickens, and you are, and just get to know your neighbors. You get to know the people the neighborhoods that you patrol. See somebody outside cutting their grass or just standing on their porch. Maybe stop, get out, and go have a conversation. Hey, how's it going? You know, and just talk. Just talk. We're all humans. Just talk. And that way, you build a trust and you get to know that person. So if, let's say you do end up stopping that person on a traffic stop a month from now. Oh, Mrs. Johnson, hey, how you doing? You know, and it's not that she's not afraid of you and you're not afraid of her or him. And there's that unity that you kind of need. They have to trust you, and you got to be able to police them without thinking they're always the enemy or always the bad guy. Right now, you make a traffic stop, you're taught that everyone on a traffic stop can potentially hurt you because you don't know who you're stopping. You know what I'm saying? So if you're policing a neighborhood, but you know a lot of people in the neighborhood, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that is definitely, I think would be great to do. Do you think because it appears that every police force around the country is grappling for new recruits, that there's a war on talent for people that want to get into a profession that was once considered very noble, that maybe today isn't considered as noble? How do you change that perception so that you can get the levels of staffing up to where people can do the kind of community policing that you're suggesting? I think that's perfect. And I think you're right. The person that's driving in the car is wondering, what's the police like that's going to stop me? And the policeman is thinking, well, what's the person in the car like that I'm stopping? Because there isn't that relationship. And there is also that perception of the lack of respect between the two. So how do we make it more attractive, a profession that used to be considered more noble? How do we do that to get the kind of person in a police officer, in law enforcement, that is needed to do that kind of community policing?
I think police work needs to change. They need to stop over policing so much. A lot of times officers or patrol cars will stop cars for the most trivial reasons. It could be something like a taillight out, a slight crack in the windshield, failed to signal a lane change, or just things that aren't really harming the community. If a person has a cracked taillight, just maybe you can just let them know, pull up, hey, you got a cracked taillight.
So why do you think, forgive me for interrupting, why do you think police do that? Why do they stop for these things because those that you described to me, I'd be pretty upset if I were stopped for one. But not saying that I, got a clean traffic record, but I'm saying I'd be pretty upset if I got stopped for a cracked tail light. So why do you think police officers do that? Why do they do that?
Because that's what we're taught to do as officers. You're taught to enforce the law. So cracked tail light is an ordinance. It is a violation on the motor vehicle code. You can't have a white to the rear. You can't have a white light showing to the rear unless you're in reverse. So if because the tail lights are red when you hit your brakes. If it's cracked when you hit your brakes, it's a white light that comes through there. That's illegal.
Gotcha.
Now, is it really harming anything? No, it's not. It's a very minor infraction. But when you stop that car, you're stopping it because you're looking for something more. Now you're gonna get this person's driver's license. You're gonna run their name, see if they have warrants. You're gonna see if anybody else in the car has warrants. and it becomes a bigger thing than just the cracked tail light. That's, to me, that's over policing, and I think that's something that needs to change. So I think once you get away from that and you just start focusing on answering runs and making good traffic stops, where if you get some drunk driver or someone speeding, running red lights, those are good traffic stops, because you can't have people running red lights and you can't have people speeding. So if you start focusing on more of the valid traffic stops, you're gonna lessen your negative interactions. You know what I mean? For example, Sandra Bland, she got stopped because she was getting out of the way of the police officer that was coming up he was running up behind her to check her license plate or whatever, and she just got out of his way, if you remember. And then he pulled over for failing to signal the lane change, which is ludicrous, because she was getting out of his way thinking he was coming up, trying to pass her. And that turned into what it turned into, right? Now, if you take that away and just, you don't pull her over for something stupid because she's just going to work, she wasn't committing a crime, then that doesn't happen. She's still with us. Follow me? And that's what needs to change. It needs to, the whole mindset of the officers' traffic stops is a start. That's where it needs to get better. That's a start.
And that's a mindset change that starts with learning and development, the training. Is it the leadership? What
It starts at the top. It starts at the top. I think just need to get away from quotas. Obviously, a lot of officers like to write tickets because they have to. Their departments make them write tickets.
That is true? That's true that there are quotas.
Some departments, they don't call them quotas.
Okay,
but they definitely encourage production. We'll just say that. They don't call quotas. They get creative with how they do it.
Wow.
But basically, tickets are encouraged. Okay. Because as a police officer, you're not going to go out every day and never write a ticket. I mean, that just would look kind of lazy, because you can still find decent tickets if you're out there doing your job. People are, you're out there, you drive, you see people driving crazy all the time, right?
Right.
You go, where's the cop when you need them, right? How many times have we seen that? Someone flying down the street or running a red light or weaving and cutting people off, right?
Right.
So, you would think if an officer is right now out there looking for good tickets, he'd be able to find something. But I'm saying get away from the trivial traffic stops. Just the ones that aren't hazardous stop. You know what I mean? They're just basically non-hazardous. Like right now, seatbelts are primary stops. So you can stop someone for not wearing a seatbelt, right? In my opinion, I feel that should be a secondary stop where you can stop them for something else. And if they're not wearing a seatbelt, then you can ticket them for that.
Gotcha.
Hey, at the end of the day, if you don't want to wear a seatbelt, like a lot of people, like the helmet law has been taken away. You don't have to wear helmets anymore on a motorcycle.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, that seatbelt is protecting you.
Right.
So if you don't want to wear it, hey, it's the law, but it shouldn't be a primary stop.
Gotcha.
It should be a secondary stop. And it used to be a secondary stop when it first came out. But then I think when they gave it like a few months and they made it a primary stop where you can stop somebody for that reason.
Wow.
But that's just one idea, just one thought. Just kind of cut down on some of the trivial traffic stops and just only focus on the drunk drivers and the people out here driving crazy.
Yeah. And so you talked about over policing, community policing, training, change of mindset. How then do we recruit HR professionals, recruit people, make this attractive for them to become part of the police force? What attracted you? And do you think that what could we use to attract police officers or people to be in law enforcement?
I think what could attract more candidates would be more money. Obviously, a lot of departments don't make a whole lot of money. Some more than others, obviously, but that's one. And then maybe more opportunity to do other things than work in patrol bureau. Maybe some other bureaus, other departments, just branching out, doing more things. Kind of, spreading it out a little bit more, so you're not always stuck in the police uniform, driving a police car 8 hours a day. Maybe trying different programs involving, things that interest people. A lot of people go into police work because they want to get into forensics, for example. They want to get into crime scene collection, right? So you can maybe expand that a little bit, maybe make more opportunities there, more opportunities with working with the polygraph machines. You know, there's different things you can get into. Different
Now,
units within
I'm
the
sorry.
school, different units within the school, something like that. Working with kids.
Got it. Now you worked for 25 years. Was it a 25 year and out? Is that what it was? Is that why you stopped at 25 years?
Yes, it was 25 and out then, not that way anymore, but it was then.
What is it now?
Now because they've changed the retirement system so much, I'm not even sure. I think it's somewhere around 30, 35 years because guys end up staying longer because their pensions, the numbers are different with the pensions. So they end up staying longer, which in a way it makes more sense because I mean, when I retired, I was 47. That's really young.
Yeah.
And so with that way of doing things, which is another issue, you lose a lot of your seasoned officers. You understand? So those guys are all leaving when they're 47, 48 years old. And now you got these young guys coming in at 21, 22 who don't have the experience. And then of course that can lead to, you know, some bad decisions.
So you mean that in the structure, there is no succession planning where you are required to be a mentor for younger officers before you leave?
You do some training, but what I'm saying is once you leave at 47, 48 years old, you're still fairly young.
You're very young.
You've got a lot of experience to do the job, as opposed to a kid that's coming up out of the academy. You know, so once they get on their own, they're, you know, 23, 24, and they don't have the seasoned experience yet. So you got your seasoned officers who are still young, exiting out the door, retiring, and then the young people are coming up. So eventually those young officers will get there, but then once they get there, they're moving on. So once you get that seasoned officer, you kind of want to, I always thought it made sense to retain the experienced officers and be heavy that way. And then your young officers can pretty much learn from the older officers. And you may not get as many young officers making bad choices and bad decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you get more seasoned officers on the department.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing with the extra part that once that younger officer in your example was on his own, that he would be partnered with one of those seasoned officers, even though you typically don't, you know, do partners in writing. But for that first 6 months or first time after probation, that they would be partnered, that would be part of your succession planning. But it sounds like maybe no.
Well, they kind of do that. Like when you're going through the training officer training program, you are paired with a more a seasoned officer, someone with at least 5 or 6 years on the job. But I'm saying that once you become retirement age, 47, I think you still got another 5, 6 years in you that you could probably give to the department that would help keep the department moving in a good direction.
Yes, I agree with that. I would just probably how you do that in those extra years. I was thinking maybe formalizing something a little bit more, but I'm with you 1,000%. And so I want to pivot. And you're retired. You retired at 47, so that is very young. Did you want to leave? Were you hoping that there would be some program where you would stay? What did you envision your next years after retirement would be?
I was willing to stay if they were willing to, because some departments have what they call a drop program, where you stay on for another 4 or 5 years and they freeze your benefits. They freeze it. So then they take that money and they drop it into an account, and it just grows interest while you stay on the department, and they're no longer paying into your retirement. So now you have an officer who's seasoned. We talked about that. And he's there for another 5 years. And so then when he retires in 5 years, his nest egg is a little bit more for him. So it's a win-win for everyone. But our department didn't see it that way, so they didn't do it. So I retired because I don't feel like to me, once you can retire, I think it's smart to retire because tomorrow's not promised.
Mhm.
So you can stay on if you want. You don't have to leave.
Mhm.
But you stay on and something bad happens, you get in that car accident or, you get attacked. Well, now you get nothing, you lose.
Mhm.
So I felt like, it's always better to just kind of take, leave and go do something different
Mhm.
and just
Mhm.
kind of go from there. That's just how I felt about it.
Okay. And is there one memory in your 25 years that you can share with us that you said, this is why I chose police or law enforcement? Any story or memory that comes to mind over those 25 years that you say, this is why I became a police officer?
One time, we got a 911 call from I think she might have been 7 years old. 7-year-old girl called the police, called 911,
Mm.
and said that her mother wasn't feeding her. My mom's not feeding me. She won't give me dinner. She won't let me eat. So the dispatcher asked her why, and the girl said, because I won't do my homework. so so they got to talking about her doing her homework. So the dispatcher called me up on the phone. She called me on my phone and said, hey, I got this girl over here on the street. She's called 911 and she's saying her mother won't feed her. Can you go talk to her? Just to basically let her know you don't call 911 for stuff like that. So I go there and knock on the door, and her mom comes to the door. And I explain what happened. She goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So I go in and I talk to her. I talked to the little girl. She's the cutest thing ever. And explain to her that you got to do your homework to get your dinner for the night. You got to do your homework. So she says, okay, so where's your homework at? So she goes and gets it. And I stayed for about 20, 25 minutes and helped her with her math homework. And she just thought that was the greatest thing ever. And helping her with her homework, and we got it done. And we stayed in contact for about another 5-6 years after that. I remember she went to high school, and I ran into her in high school. I saw her at a function at her high school, and she remembered me. I remember her. It was pretty cool. She was all grown up. She had changed a lot, but she was all grown up, and she remembered that experience.
Wow. That is an awesome experience. Great, great story. And so since you retired, what have you been doing? In these, because how long have you been retired now?
8 years, 7, 8 years.
8 years. And
Yeah.
so what have you enjoyed doing and spending your time now in retirement?
Well, when I first retired, I spent time just kind of traveling. I went to different locations, just got on the airplane and just traveled New Orleans, Barbados, Florida, Vegas. And then I got a job working at a high school in
Mm.
Livonia.
Mm.
And I've been there ever since, just doing security there, which basically just locking the doors in the morning, the occasional minor scuffle breaks out, break it up, no big deal. And just being a presence at the school. And also, the same school I work at, the high school I work at, I help their football program.
Oh,
So I
cool.
coach their football program. So I've been doing that since I retired.
Mhm. Okay.
And it's been pretty sweet. It's been a pretty good gig. I work a few days a week. And then, during football season, I'm a little bit busier because with practice and the games. But during the off season, just a few days a week. And then summers, school's out. The school's going to be ending here in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
And then it's just football. We start our football season right after school ends. So June, July, August, it's
Mhm.
football.
Okay. And I know you have an adult son now, and you're also caregiving for your mom. What is that like, having an adult son and caregiving and being retired? Send me.
Um, it's lately, well, I just started taking care of my mom right around Thanksgiving of 2020.
Okay.
So the first few months was it was a lot.
Mhm.
It was a lot. It was a lot of work.
Mhm.
A lot of work. I mean, you've done it, so you know exactly what I'm saying. It's a lot of work. It's a lot, but it's also rewarding because you know your mom gets to be home.
Mhm.
You try and keep her happy as possible.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And you feel good that she's not in a retirement home, which a lot of people end up taking their parents and just sticking them in a retirement home and not looking back. And it just feels good to know that she's 80 now.
Mhm.
So she's enjoying her 80s, being home, being comfortable. And that's important to me.
Yeah. It seems the thread that runs through your story is that you're passionate about service. Would you describe yourself as that? You're passionate about giving to people, helping people, serving people.
Yeah, I'm helping people and seeing people you know, that need help and just helping them. Yeah, that definitely would describe me.
Okay.
That's definitely something I enjoy doing.
Mhm. And do you think that that is a critical value to have if you're going to go into policing?
Yeah, you have to be a people person. If you don't like people, then this ain't I won't be the job for you. You got to be a people person. You got to have the gift of gab. That helps being able to talk to people. A lot of the times you'll see these officers. I don't, they don't have the ability to communicate with
Mhm.
people. Just to find out what's going on.
Mhm.
It becomes a confrontation. A person wants to escalate a situation. You got to be able to de-escalate the situation.
Mhm.
And if you can't do that, it's not gonna be a good day for you. You got to be able to just stay calm and just be able to talk to people.
Mhm.
If you can do that, you go pretty far
Okay.
in your day-to-day activities.
Okay. Well, I am excited that you have joined us. Before we go, I'd like for you to just look in the camera, Tyrone, and talk to prospects, candidates, potentials who are thinking about law enforcement, or maybe some who aren't, about what you found rewarding, what you think they should bring to the table, and what you think after 25 years they'll get to take away from the table. So, can you do that for us?
Sure. Um, the job is a lot more than what you see on TV or what you hear about. There's a lot more to it than just chasing down bad guys or making arrests or getting into confrontations. I mean, there's a lot more helping people than you would know, because you don't see people that are broken down on the side of the road, and you're there to help them, change a tire, or to get someone there to help them get to where they need to be, or help someone who had their house broken into and had their precious belongings stolen, and to be able to help them try and retrieve those items. If you know what I mean. Like, there are times where you make an arrest for someone break. I remember we had locked up a guy for breaking into a house one time, and this guy had stole all this lady's um, jewelry that she had collected from her mom and her grandmom,
Mm.
and we recovered that stuff for her. And oh my gosh, she was like so grateful and so happy. So there's more to the job than just what you see on TV. And if you have the desire to a people person and to help people, it's definitely a job that we need to get more good people involved, especially African Americans in some of these suburban departments. We always complain about the profiling, the racial profiling, and all that goes on. And there was a time in early, maybe before I got hired, or maybe even while I was there, where um, African Americans were targeted. Let's say in Dearborn, Livonia, Farmington Hills, Warren. Okay, so what we need to do is we have to be the change we want to see.
Mhm.
So you need to actually be willing to jump on board and be that change to help things get better in that respect. So don't just always think that, the police department is not the way to go. It's actually where you want to go to make that change. You want to change from the inside out, not on the outside looking in and just complaining and saying how bad it is. Get inside and be the change.
That's awesome. And in your story with the little girl, 7-year-old, making the impact on her homework and then seeing her years later is one of the things that I think would be very rewarding for you. What would you say to potential candidates about what types of rewards that they might expect to realize during their service time if they become involved in law enforcement as an officer?
Well, you meet a lot of different interesting people. Mm-hmm. And you impact a lot of lives, and a lot of times in a positive way. You really do, just by being there for people. When people call 911, they call it because they need help, right? And just to show up and to be able to help somebody, it's something that it's a rewarding feeling. You do get something out of it inside when you show up to a scene and someone's there who needs assistance. And I mean, the scenarios are endless, but you are there to help them. And that's what you do. And it definitely is something that, obviously is needed. I know people talk about, abolishing police departments, but realistically, can you do that? I say, I don't think you can. Yeah. Because, first thing you see when someone's in distress, what do you always hear? Call the police, right? Yeah. So, but you got to make sure that the people you bring in are there for the right reasons. You know what I mean? You don't want the yahoos coming in that just want to, be confrontational and just, quick to pull out their gun or quick to use force. You kind of want the people who know how to deal with situations, and not escalating them. But like I said before, you want someone that knows how to de-escalate a situation, to bring it down. That's what you want. You want those kind of people, and they're out there, but you just got to get them to want to be the police. You know what I mean? And that's where the challenge comes in. You got to change the mindset of what police work really is and what it looks like.
So when some people hear the word police, Tyrone, they think of defunding. They think of excessive force. They think of police brutality. They think of racism. Yeah. What would you want people to think of when they hear the word police?
Well, you want to think of not that, of course, but you got to remember, we're talking 850,000 cops across the United States, right? Mm-hmm. And then, in so many different factions of police work, detectives, patrol officers, people just write reports or work in the lockup or working with in the schools or working in the this other crime scene technicians. It's just so many different officers that do different things. Sex crimes officers, there's so much to it. So I just want people to think of it as people that are there to help keep the streets safe, to help people sleep better at night. There to make sure that, when you go out for a walk or out for a jog, the police are there. You see a police car go by, you want to feel good about that. You don't want to feel nervous about that. You want to feel good about that. You know what I mean? You see a cop car behind you or in front of you, oh, okay, cool. You want to feel, so you don't want to feel like, oh my God, are they going to pull me over? Are they going to stop me? And, they're going to come harass me. You want to get away from that. You want to get away from that thought process. You want to think positive things. When you see a police car going down the street, you want to think good things. You don't want to think bad things. If we can get back to that, things will be a lot better.
Yeah. I had one incident that I will characterize as very bad with a police officer in New York when I was there visiting a few years ago. Uh, it could have been a traffic stop that went horribly.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I had a friend of mine as the passenger in the car who helped to keep the Herbert Holmes in me down. It helped me to kind of stay calm during some of the talk that I felt was condescending and totally unnecessary for what he alleged. I made a right turn without the signal, is what he
Okay.
alleged. Um, and he might have been right. Of course, he might have been right. I doubt that he was, but the approach that he made,
All
to
wrong.
the stop. But I thought of, believe it or not, I thought of you, Tyrone. I thought of, well, wait, there is the first app, not because we had any interaction, in law enforcement, but I've always been proud to know that you were the first African American. You have always been like, very even tempered person. And I thought, well, that must really be great to be a police officer that's even tempered. Now, I haven't seen you in uniform, so I couldn't attest to how you are in uniform, right? But as a person, you've always been very even tempered. And I said, okay, it made me humanize this interaction as saying, okay, this is somebody's father, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
This is somebody's brother, maybe. And I don't know why his approach to me is as if I've committed some crime in a rental car that the paper must have checked out when he ran the plate. But if that's what he did, I assume. So it helped me to kind of say, okay, now this could go a lot of bad ways, and I could need some pretty powerful lawyers to get out of this. Or could I pull something from my memory? And that's what I went to. I said, okay, how would I handle this if this was Tyrone? Well, first, Tyrone probably wouldn't be talking to me this way. But how would I humanize this person in this interaction? And I don't know that on either sides that we've been very successful in doing that. And I think it's something you said earlier, just talk to people and see what's going on and treat each other as human. Because I would like to think of every police officer as being human and would hope that they would think of me and every other person as being a human. And if we did that kind of just basic civility, I think it would make quite a difference in what our perception as people are of police officers and theirs of us.
Huge. I think the first thing you got to remember is I always remember when I made traffic stops, the first thing I would want to do is I would speak to people. Good morning. Good afternoon. How are you? Just a greeting, not I stopped you for blah, 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 blah. You kind of come up, hey, good morning. How are you doing? Just, start off that way, kind of put them at ease. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, I wasn't a big ticket writer. I just wasn't. It just wasn't something I enjoyed doing because I know those things are super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, being a driver myself, we all made mistakes, turning without a signal or, oh, shoot, that light was red. We've all done it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not above,
Mm-hmm.
making mistakes ourselves. So I always kept that in my mind, hey, kind of been there and done that. So I get it. But if an officer is rude like that, you have to meet that rudeness with you don't take it up with him.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of bring it down, and then a lot of times they'll bring it down too. Sometimes it could just be I'm not trying to make excuses for the person. I don't know who it was, but maybe he was having a bad day.
Could be. Yeah. As a human resources professional, as a human resources professional, I've had bad days, and people will expect you to always be up. I mean, it can happen. It can happen, definitely.
It can happen.
Yeah.
But if they can not get him to bring it down, if he can bring it down, then hey, we're good.
Yeah.
If I committed happened to me in Florida one time. I had a officer. I was active officer at the time, and I ran a red light. Didn't even realize there was a light there. It was one of those roundabouts. You know those roundabouts we have here?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, the ones in Michigan, we don't have traffic lights on. Mm-hmm. You're able to just get in there and just go. Mm-hmm. Well, for some reason, the one in Florida, it was Hollywood, Florida. They had a traffic light on theirs, which was kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. And I ran the red light, and the lady pulled me over, and she was not happy. She starts going off. I ran two. It was two lights. I ran two of them. Mm-hmm. She goes, "You're getting 2 tickets, $200 each." She just starts yelling. Before she didn't even say hello or nothing. She just starts yelling. And she starts going back to her. I'm like, hey, well, what up? Wait a minute. I'm a police officer. I do that line out there. She comes back up and she kind of brought it down. I go, where are you a police officer? I go, Livonia, or I just said outside Detroit because people don't know where Livonia is outside of Michigan.
Right.
She goes, well, what does red mean in Detroit? Just go, man, she's having a really bad day. I go, it means stop. And she goes, well, I go, I understand it was a mistake. I'm sorry. I hit her with that. So she had no where to go after that. Once I apologized, she just, okay, she goes, where are you trying to go to? Because I was lost. Explain to me where I had to go. You make a left up here, you go straight there, and you run. I'm like, thank you. Have a good day. And it worked out.
Yeah.
So just kill them with kindness. And sometimes that works. And if that don't work, get their badge number, name, and go file a complaint.
Yeah. That's good. I think I will have you back for that discussion because I think people do need to know how to interact with the police and de-escalate situations rather than escalate them. So I think I'll have you back for that. Tyrone Pickens, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We are at 109. And those of you that have tuned in, thank you. You can follow Tyrone Pickens on Facebook if you so choose to. And maybe learn more about him there. We'll have him back. And so if you have any questions, you can drop those in the inbox at Love and Stuff or at LinkedIn or at YouTube events. And you can also drop them in the comments here. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate you.
It's been fun. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Well, that was the first African-American police officer on Livonia's police force, who is now retired, enjoying life, caregiving has an adult son, is still giving back to the communities, providing part-time security at one of the high schools and coaching a football, living still in the center of his passion and enjoying it. What are you passionate about? Are you living on purpose? Have you aligned yourself with work that you find is meaningful and has served the lives of others? Think about this interview with Tyrone Pickens and understand that you may enter a profession where you're the first, and it might bring some pressure to you to perform in that environment or to be the best or to live up to whatever you think the standards are. But like Tyrone, you can do it. And so may this be an installment of inspiration for you to live on purpose and enjoy the rewards, both of the fascinating people and relationships that you develop and of retirement when that time comes and the life after to enjoy. Take good care of yourselves. Don't forget that our book, The Gratefulness Journey Every Day, is available on Amazon, iBooks, Barnes and Noble, and Kobo. What are you doing in the next 30 days to transform your life? This book will help you to do it in 30 days. If you've lived in anger or depression, grief or loss or bereavement, and you want to craft for yourself more grateful living, you should pick up this book and invest in yourself. Some time of reading and some time of reflecting to build in 3 simple steps a very powerful habit that will change your life. Have a grateful rest of the day and weekend. And just in the way of announcements, Sports Talk with Felix and Kamal is on the Facebook page and now has its own Facebook group. And the next installment will be next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time live. And you can also get in on the next movie night, which will be happening Father's Day weekend, that Friday, the 17th, I believe it is. You can purchase your tickets. They will be available. I think they will go on sale at midnight tonight. And we'll also have a Juneteenth celebration that Saturday and culminating with Father's Day, a very special Father's Day presentation that afternoon. If you want to stay locked into the events that are happening, click follow on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch TV, YouTube events so that you can stay apprised of wonderful opportunities to engage with wonderful people who are living in purpose, on purpose, and in passion. I'm Marcus Holmes, the HR Passion Guy. Have a grateful day and weekend.